Now we're going to talk about project contracts and billing. So I'm going to navigate to the top level. We're going to go over some setup items first, and then we're going to get into the workflow. So at the top level here, I've got a budget repository area. And I want to make sure I have my contract approved, contract original, contract pending, and contract revision budgets set up that are marked as project contract type of budgets. So you want to make sure those are in there. They should already be there. However, project estimates should be there as well, but that should be marked as a project estimate budget as well. Okay, so we're going to navigate here to the projects menu, and we're going to go into the setup screen, and we're going to talk about project contract types and rate tables. So I'm going to click on project contract types here. And we have some example ones already in the Intacct instance. However, you're going to want to set these up how you would like to use them. How they are used, generally speaking, is on your project contracts screen, you're going to have a contract type right here. They're not used a whole lot in reporting or dashboarding. It's more for your knowledge of what kind of bill is this? Do I need to worry about a GMP on it? What kind of form is it going to be on? So you might want to name your project contract types something like lump sum AIA or T&M with a GMP or lump sum on a type of invoice form. Okay, if you have a single page invoice form or a quick bill, there's lots of different types of terms out there. But those are some examples of project contract types that some people are using. Mainly it's used for this list. So whoever's going to do the billing on these, they can easily see what kind of billing it's going to be or what kind of form it's going to go on. So it's a pretty simple setup. It's just a list, but I'll edit one so you can see it. So you just type the project contract type ID. Usually the name is the same and status active. So that's how easy it is to add them. You can type here in both spots and hit save. Okay, now I'm going to navigate to rate tables. So rate tables are a way to put a rate or a percentage on purchase orders, subcontract invoices, your time, your labor, your hours, so that it can be marked up either using a rate or using a percentage markup. Some people also do equipment time and do rates for their equipment. We have a very specific setup at Banger for that equipment type of setup, okay? So all of those types of situations can be done using rate tables. I'm going to open up one of these that's already created, but I'm going to go up to the top level because the view is a little better. Notice I don't have an edit button here. So these were not created at the entity level. These were created at the top level. You can create them at either level, but I'm going to go up to top level where they were created. So if I click edit, the tables look more like an input table. Okay, so how they're going to look when you type in the information with these white boxes. So I'm going to zoom down a minute so we can see all of the screen. So to edit a rate table, I am going to come down here into the grids and I am going to make some changes. I first want to explain the different areas here and what you can do in each area generally, and then we'll talk about the specific fields and how this all works in the rate table. So timesheet rate entries, these are for the time sheets area here. So any time that's entered or imported from an integration even, any of the time that hits timesheets here, the hours, that is going to be used here in this timesheet rate entries area. Any purchasing rate entries, those pull from the purchasing, subcontract, and PO, all of these types of transactions here in your menu in the purchasing menu. The accounts payable Doesn't necessarily have to be purchasing. Accounts payable can be a bill that is entered in on this bill screen that is not entered in purchasing, but is coded to a project. So the accounts payable rate entries section is that area, AP bill screen. General ledger is what it sounds. Those are general journal entries. So journal entries you make to a project, those can be marked up as well. Credit card transactions. So in the cash management area, your credit card transactions, and then employee expenses. So if you use the expenses area here and you use the employee expenses, the markup for those is that area right here. So at the top here, I'm going to scroll back up. We're going to talk about labor first. So in this labor grid, I have all these different types of filters I can put on a specific line so that if it hits this criteria, it's going to use this labor rate, for example, to mark up that hour. So for example, let's look at this estimators line. There's a trade here. So I've got estimators as my trade, and I've got an $80 an hour labor rate markup. So for every hour that my person charges time and they have the trade estimator on their payroll record, their time record, then that is going to get marked up to $80 an hour when the billing is done. So this does not hit the cost reports. This only hits the billing to the owner, to the customer. If it's 5 hours, for example, and the timesheet is on or after 1/3 of 2022, the time is, then it's going to be $400 that will be on the billing. So 5 hours times $80 an hour. Okay. There's all sorts of other criteria you can use. So you could do a specific employee. That's an estimator here. You could also drag up your layout. So if you want to drag up the employee here, so it's visible, a little easier, save layout. Then if a specific estimator, say it's Jose, is $80 an hour, but all my other estimators are $75 an hour, the more specific criteria is going to hit first. So if it's Jose, since he's an estimator, it's $80 an hour. If it's not Jose and it's an estimator, they're going to be 75. Okay, so the more specific happens first. So you can use all these different types of fields to make the criteria. If it hits, then it does this markup. You cannot do markup percent and labor rate. You have to pick one or the other. Also down here, unit price and markup percent, it's one or the other. Okay. So down here in purchasing, you might do a quantity markup, but the most common scenario is I want to mark up my POs and my subcontract invoices 25%. Okay, so this one is specific. All of my equipment POs, subcontract invoices, probably a PO, is going to get marked up 25%. But remember, I've got all these other fields I can use. I can do a specific vendor if I want, that gets marked up a certain way. Then down here, same thing. A best practice is to mirror what you do in purchasing in AP, because you might enter in that equipment rental bill, let's say, right into AP bills. That's a choice you can do instead of running it through here, because this might not be a PO. If you want all equipment marked up 25%, any bills that come in with that cost type on it, you need to do it in both areas, just as a best practice. General ledger rate entries, that would be things that you make an entry to on a job. For example, insurance cost. You might put a flat insurance amount, percentage of cost or something onto your job. So you can mark up those entries as well. If you want anything marked up on the job, on any area, anything that hits the system, besides labor, because that's going to be done up here, any other cost, you could simply just do this, put 25% on every single area. Don't do any criteria. So any credit card transaction, any employee expense, any GL entry, mirror it up here. Any purchasing or AP bill would get the 25% markup. Just don't put any criteria on it. And as long as it's one of these types of entries, it's going to do what it says right here for the markup percent. Okay, so you can do things like that as well. Make it pretty generic. With rate tables, what happens is the markup percent, the markup, overhead, whatever you want to call it, fee, profit, lots of different terms for that. You cannot have that show on the bottom of the AIA if you put it in the rate table. So this is going to be, it's going to follow the cost. It's going to follow the line that cost hits on the AIA. So I'm going to show how this ties together when we do the billing process and show those examples. But this is going to follow the actual cost in the system and how you have that laid out on the AIA, for example, or on a time and material billing. If you want the fee at the bottom, we have to do something different. You can duplicate rate tables as well and mirror this, make a few changes if you want. You can set up a rate table for every customer, for every job if you really need to. So the duplicate button is pretty powerful that way. One of the nice features is the start date. So I can change this and do inflation, for example, and I do not need to make a new rate table and assign a new rate table when the rates go up. So the standard rate table is going to be assigned to a project contract. And let's say at the beginning of January, I get to increase my rates. I just come in here and list all these out with the new increase. So if the time is after 1/3, on or after 1/3 of 23, it's going to hit this and it's going to ignore this one here for the estimator. Okay. So now let's go into setting up a project contract. Most of the time, you're going to be at the entity level when you set up your project contracts. When you set up your projects as well. So you're going to set up your project first. You do not have to put an estimate into the system. You can go right to the project contract and put your project contract in if you'd like. Okay. So I'm going to navigate over to project contracts. And I already have a list of some existing. The best practice is not to use a random system-generated auto-sequencing number. So you do not want to have in your project configuration, best practice, we've already turned this off for you. So you do not want it to auto-sequence your contract IDs to where it does this. You're going to type the project number in place of that. So I'm going to add a new project contract just so you can see how this looks. So for example, let's say I want to make up a project contract for the sugar shop. I'm going to go something like this. I'm going to mirror the project contract to be the same as the project. So ID equals ID, name equals name. Customer pre-filled in because I had the customer on the project. Okay. The customer has to be on the project. The location has to be on the project. So the contract and the billing will work. You've got to put the customer and the location on the project screen. Okay. Then civil engineer, landscape, these distributes are not really used. You can. The similar AIA form that we have, if you want those, then we will adjust that form. But generally speaking, these are not used. Contract date came in based on the begin date on the project. Okay, so there's a begin date on that project screen. Description can be used if you want a longer description than here. Maybe you want that to come out on the billing form, or you want it just for your own internal purpose. You can put that there. It's not common, but you can. Project contract type. Okay, so this is going to be what we talked about, where it's going to be like the type of form, the type of billing it is. Is it lump sum, AIA? So I don't generally like these ones that are set up. I like to have the type of form it's on and what type of billing it is. Fixed price, T&M with GMP, etc. Okay. So I'm just going to pick one here. Architect can be used. It's the contacts you have in the system. You can add one on the fly if you want. If you want that on the AIA form, for example, or your other billing form, you're going to click billable, status active, and that's the header, generally speaking. You can drag and drop a signed contract onto here if you have one and want to. Drag and drop the PDF in this white space, and it'll attach it for you. Okay, we're going to scroll down. This part's important. So in the integrate with GL, we're going to post to GL budgets. We're going to pick our original contract, our revision contract budget, our approved, and our pending. Do not fill in forecast or other. Those are not used. You're going to pick period of each project contract line entry effective date. The last option there. And that is all you need to do to set up the header of the project contract. Okay, so you're going to hit save. Now, I am not going to save this because there's probably already one in the system for this one. We'll try it here. Okay, so now I have my Sugar Shop project contract header created. So now we're going to create some lines. So I'm going to hit the lines here. Going to hit add. These are going to be, for an example, I'm going to do an AIA type of setup. So I'm going to do 001 for my first line. Type my schedule values line description. You do not need this longer description. Generally speaking, people don't use that. Line date comes from the header of the contract, pre-filled in. Best practice, you're going to use this GL account. If I have retainage, I'm going to put it there, and billable. Anywhere you see billable, just go ahead and check it. We want those to come through to the billing screen. Progress bill is the billing type for the AIA setup where you're going to type in the amounts or the percent complete in the billing screen. Okay, there's another scenario I'm going to talk about next where the amounts will fill in for you based on the bills in the system. Okay. But this is, you're going to type it in. So the difference between these two billing types is purely how the system works, how the generate invoice screen works. It's not the form, it's how the screen works. So progress bill is typing in the amounts or the percent complete. Time and material is using the costs in the system, the timesheet hours, using rate tables to calculate what the billing is going to do on the billing screen. Okay, so it's an automation. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to come down to dimensions and I'm going to pick my project. If I have a department on the project, it's going to pre-fill in, as you can see there. Item here, I'm going to pick contract item. To make it simple, items aren't used a whole lot in Sage Intacct construction for this area especially. So we just put a default contract item right here. So that's always contract item. Down here, you're going to put your price that you want to show on your schedule values. The date comes in from the header again, and you hit save. Okay, now this is a good scenario I want to point out. So I already have a contract with that specific job set up in the system. So I'm going to show you why that error message occurred. So I'm going to cancel this. We're going to go back to the header screen. This is good to show. So right here, I already have a contract set up for the Sugar Shop. So I cannot have another contract with the same project. Okay, so we're going to use this one to show the lines. So you want to be careful not doing that, not having more than one contract attached to the same project. So we have both of those attached to that one. Okay, so we're going to look at this one that's already set up. And that was the line I was trying to generate, something similar to that. Okay. So as you can see, header info, progress bill. My project down here, the department came in. Do not use the more complex structure. You're going to use contract item to make it easy. You do not need that detailed item listing. So you just want contract item there. And then your amount down below, it's going to put the memo and the date in for you based on pre-construction up here and the date on the header. You can duplicate the lines. You can import lines as well. So I'll show the import towards the end and give an example import that you can use for the lines. So if you have a longer AIA schedule of values or detailed billing, then you'll want to, more than likely, you're going to want to use this import contract lines option. Now I want to show the actual process. I want to show the whole way through setting. Now that I have one, I can show you for the AIA. So we're going to use this one. I'm going to show you how the billing process works after we've set it up. So I've got all my lines in. Now I can actually do a billing if I want to. So I'm going to navigate now over to generate invoices. So I've been here, set up my lines. That's the screen I'm on now. I'm going to come here. I'm going to pick project contract first. It's out of order. You're going to pick this bullet first. Notice my templates up here changed. So the project contract invoice is the AIA similar form. Okay, so you're going to pick that if it's an AIA form. You're going to use a month-end date here. You're going to have your billing date be the same as well, the bill through date. Best practice is you want to have your dates matching. Then you're going to pick the contract we're billing on. So it's the Sugar Shop. Again, that's going to have the job number in front instead. I'm going to submit and post it. I'm not going to draft it in this scenario. So I'm going to hit preview. All of the top header info should be fine. You don't need to change anything there. Scroll down. You need to put this in. So app 4, I'm on app 5. It's my last one. Down here, I've got all of my different columns. The first time you do this, I'm going to hit start over here for a second. The first time you do this, you're going to want to change your display options. Each person that does the screen has to do this. It's not a global thing. So you're going to want to turn on your columns here. Also, you can reorder the columns by clicking on the symbol next to the number, getting the crossbars and dragging that up and down. Okay. Time and material, when I show that next, that's down here below the AIA type of columns. So don't forget there's 2 sections. Also, at the top, you might want to maximize your rows up a bit. Actually, you're going to want to because of the fact that it'll cut off your entries at 50. So you're not going to see all of them and potentially will not bill all of them. So just go ahead and bring them up quite a bit so that you get all of your entries that need to be billed on the screen. Okay, that's an important step to do. I'm going to hit preview here. I'm going to put app 5 again. And now I can see my original contract price, change orders to that line, revised total, what I billed previously. We've got a retainage balance here. You might want to move that towards the end. You can also zoom down so you can get more columns. You can also just show revised total if you'd like. You can hide item. You can probably hide project. So you're doing one project at a time, description. So you can shrink this down quite a bit so you can see all the columns. So I'm going to zoom back up. And now I'm just going to put some amounts in here. And I've got my amount I want to bill for the period. I have stored materials I could put in amounts for as well. I could bill retainage, part of the retainage if I want. I could withhold less retainage if I'd like to as well. Okay, so we can do that all on that, all of those. And as I change things, it's going to cascade through. So if I bill something here, my retainage is going to calculate and it's going to cascade through. Okay. So I've got some amounts in, and now all I need to do is hit create invoice. That's as simple as an AIA where you type the amounts in, called progress bill. That's as simple as it is. So I can hit create invoice now. Another error I want to show you is this one. So the maximum billing amount, I tried to bill over 100%. So I'm going to come back down and I'm going to look to see where I tried to bill over the 100% amount. So remaining balance here, for example, that's one of them. So I tried to bill $1,500 and excuse me, I read that wrong. It says retainage balance. So over here, I'm going to see if I have a balance remaining column, and I do. So previously billed, my revised total is $4,100. So if I take out the $1,500, I'm still okay on that line. So I can bill $3,403 on that line. So where am I off here? So I've got right here, I'm over because I have a negative in my balance remaining. So I want to reduce this, just bring it down some. So now I'm positive. So this balance remaining column, you can look at the negatives in here to see if you have overbilled on a specific line. Intacct does not let you overbill on progress billing. You can do overbilling on the time and material functionality, but you cannot do that on your progress bill scenario. Okay, so you have to do a change order to bring that up on that, bring that line up. So now I'm going to hit create invoice. And it's telling me I have invoice number 90. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go to invoice number 90. It's going to ask me if I want to leave the screen, and I do. And it's at the top here. I'm going to go into the screen and look at the actual screen it generates to show you how this looks. So I've got the header info, got some information up here. Here's what I actually filled out and completed in the prior screen. The amount retained. Also, don't forget there's show detail lines when you're on looking at lines. So don't forget that is there. We're going to come up and we're going to look at the posting details. So in here, we have what it did on my journal entry. I can actually click and see the journal entry it makes in the general ledger. Got every single line, it puts zeros on if you don't bill it. And then your retainage, for example. Okay, so you've got AR, income, retainage, receivable. Okay, you can dump to Excel, do all that good stuff. Scroll up to the top, history. So when did I do this? Email history, if I emailed it out. Okay, so you've got all sorts of history that's going to happen on here. Payment details, if the customer is paid or not. Project contract billing details. So this is the AIA laid out, all those columns that we had on the AIA, quite a few of them actually. So this is just a summary screen that Intacct has for these project contract invoice transactions. Something to note, hit update billing details if you've made some changes and these do not appear correct. So there's a button up here. Every now and then we'll need to update the billing details. You can view an audit trail as well. Source and attachments. This is for time and material billing. It's going to attach the PDFs of the bills if you have images in the system. So Sage Paperless pushes the bills in, or you'll have an attachment of that actual subcontract invoice, your AP bill. and those will be listed here. You can create a zip file manually. You can also email out this invoice form and have that zip file go as well. So I'm going to show that here in a little bit. So that's what this tab is for. Summary billing details, just another summary of the billing. So different things that you might want to look at there. And then there's update buttons. Don't forget to use those. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to hit done. And now I'm going to show you how the form looks when we hit print or email here. So you can print and preview it. And hit print or email. If I want to look at it, I'm going to hit print and OK. And it's going to come up with the print preview screen. This is one example that we have. There are other versions that have a notary signature. So we have a notary up here. We have other ones that have the notary signature not displayed if that's not required, and tax as well if you have a tax situation and you need to list tax on here. And then scroll down, you've got your lines here that mirror what an AIA looks like. Okay. So that is the entire process of creating the Progress Bill AIA scenario. If you want to email it out of the system, you would click the email option here. The 2 is going to be filled in if you put that on the customer records. So there's content that Bangert has made about email templates and how to create those. And the customer's email would fill in here. The email template would already be picked for billing, is what you could call it more than likely, who it's going from. So you could have the specific project manager listed here. You could have the person that's logged in be listed, or a default billing at timberlineconstruction.com. It could be a default name as well. So you have a preview you can do as well to see how the PDF attachment of the bill is going to look when it goes out on the email. There's that preview option there. Okay, but this will all be filled in if you set up the email templates and attach that email address to the customer record. So now let's look at a time and material setup for billing. So I'm going to navigate to project contracts again. And I can easily see, because I've done project contract types, that this is a time and material type of billing. Okay, so I've got 2 and I've got a GMP one as well. We're going to use this Stratus Corporate Setter one for an example. I'm going to show you the header and I'm going to show you the lines. The difference is going to be in the lines mainly. So on the header here, we have, again, we're going to type in the project number. So 22005 would go there. Stratus Corporate Center. The customer is going to default in, if you remember. The date will also default in from the begin date on the project. If you skip over that, you have to type the date here. You don't need description, but you can put it there if you'd like. And then you pick your project contract type, billable. Okay, the active should be there already. I'm going to scroll down, integrate with GL, still going to occur. That's the typical setup. It's the last one there. And that is the header for the time and material scenario. So the only difference really is you're going to pick a different type here. Okay, so now the lines are what drive how the billing works. So on the line level, I'm going to pick this first line. Normally hit add. You'll just sequence your lines. You can leave room in between if you're like, ooh, what if I need to put something between 1 and 2? Some people leave some room. Okay, they might do 1, 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, that's up to you. So here I'm going to type my line number in. I'm going to do my line name. Don't need description. The date will default in from the header. I'm going to pick best practice. I'm going to pick that GL account, 10% retainage, billable. Status active should be there already. Here's the difference, time and material. So I'm going to pick time and material here, and I have a choice. Do I want the generate invoice screen to stop at the total revised price on the line? So that would be the price I put here plus change orders I would do after the fact. Or do I want to do a specific amount and just type it here for that line? For pre-construction and general conditions line, or no maximum, just let it generate whatever it's going to generate. Okay, so you have options here on what you can want to do with maximum billing. Okay, summarize to a single entry. I'm going to talk about that one next. This is going to be a scenario where you want the AIA to pre-fill in the amounts for you based on the costs in the system. Okay, so I'll talk about that in a minute. Standard rate table is what's assigned to this line. So when I look at this rate table, this is the rate table that's going to be used. We'll talk about that in a second as well, how that works, and you'll see that on the billing screen. I'll explain that. You do not need to have all of these filled in. You just do the default one. That's a summary. Don't need to worry about that. Pre-filled in. And remember, you're going to put the project here. The department will pre-fill in. I'm going to pick contract item here. And you can put an amount here if you would like. So this 78,000 is going to be on the schedule of values. It could be on just a simple invoice form. This does not have to be here either. So if you want to display this as like an estimate for that line, what you're going to bill at the end of the day, you can use it. If it's just going to be a pure time and material scenario, and you only want the cost to accumulate and charge a rate, and you don't care about what that comes out to, it's just pure time and material. You don't even have to list anything down here. So this specific contract that I'm showing is time and material based, and they're using detailed lines. So they're not using a schedule of values really in this scenario. They are using a detailed invoice form. Okay, so I'm going to save this and get out of this screen and show you the lines again here. But they do want to list, even though it's time and material, they are listing the 78,000. So once I show you this here, so they might have a non-AIA type of billing form, and they just want to list these out, and they want to list these amounts out. Then they're going to bill, and they're going to have that revised price. They don't want to exceed these amounts, including change orders. Okay, so that's the specific scenario we're talking about. Okay. So when I go to generate this invoice in the invoice screen, I am going to see these line items, and I'm going to see the bills underneath them as well. Okay, so I'm going to go there in a second, but I want to come back into this line and show you one thing. So when you do a time and material setup, you're going to save the line just as I described, but you're going to come back in, you're going to add cost codes. So if you want the system to use the rate table here for any cost that hits any of these cost codes, assign a markup, assign on this project and field management, if there's hours coded to this cost code, assign this timesheet rate entries table here. It's going to use these markups, these rates. Then that is going to work, but you have to add your cost codes here to the line so it knows what cost codes need to be marked up for that line. So you're going to hit add cost codes here. You can pick and choose what you want. Add selected. I just added a few more. Hit done. And I'm going to have a few more here on my cost codes linked to pre-construction and general conditions. Okay, and hit save. And now I've just added a few more cost codes onto that line. So I'm going to go to the billing screen and we're going to see how this one looks. So we're going to navigate to projects, generate invoices. This is where you can do all your billings. It's going to be in generate invoices. So remember, hit project contract first. And I might use a different form because this one is not an AIA type form. This is going to be a T&M invoice form. We're going to pick the Stratus Corporate Center. We're going to do a month-end date on both, and I'm going to hit preview. Remember on your display options to blow those rows up and then come down here. These are all of the columns available to see on your time and material section down here at the bottom. So down here are the columns I'm talking about. Okay, so let me scroll up to the top. Nothing to do here again, remember. Here you're going to do probably number 2, because I did number 1 already. Okay, so this is where the AIA progress bill, where my lines were before. Notice they're blank because I've picked time and material for this specific billing structure. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to explain this summary here, and then we're going to look at all the entries down below. So the update expense totals here is going to come into play when I start playing around with what I want to bill down here. So the summary up here is summarizing what I'm billing down here. So these are all my labor timesheet entries. I've got an accounts payable bill that came in from bonding company for $2,000. And I have a 20% markup on that rate table. Okay, so $2,400 that's going to get invoiced to the customer. Purchasing is the same kind of scenario. I've got my vendors here. Got my information, price, cost, which is my price times my quantity. And then I have my fee, the price to the owner. The price here is going to be what's going to be on the billing to the owner or customer. And I have all these other dimensions I can display or hide and move around in that display options view. Okay. View rate source, view source. So the rate source is viewing the rate table that's assigned to it. Why is it doing 20%? Oh yeah, on this rate table, I did put 20%. Okay, so if you remember, I was putting those blanket 20% on with no criteria. That's why it says PO default markup. You can also look at the whole rate table. Gonna hit close. The view source, I can click on that and see the actual transaction. And scroll down. If I had an attachment in the system right here, or Sage Paperless pushed in the attachment, I could see the image of the bill by clicking on the paperclip there, or the image would be here on the right. I could see the coding, and then I would see that image over here on the right if I had an attachment there. So it's really handy, these links right here, to quickly see what this is and do I want to bill it. Sometimes that happens. You need to look at the image from the subcontractor or vendor. So if I don't want to pick all of these, I just want to do a few just for demonstration purposes and pick a couple here. And I'm going to pick just a few here on the timesheet area. Okay, now notice I have this update required checkbox on these lines. I'm going to hit update totals here. And now total this period is going to reflect what I'm doing down here. So I've got here in my price column, I've got 17,400 there. And I've got some labor as well. So my totals up here should reflect what I just check marked down below. It's just a summary. Okay. So all of this right here is a summary. You're not going to do anything here. So I like that I'm billing 23 grand. So I feel good about that. I'm going to hit create invoice. Scroll up. I've got the app number on. Okay, so we're going to hit create invoice here. And now number 91 is created. So I'm going to come here to view. And I'm going to look at number 91. So I'm going to click here. And down below, this one's a little different. So I'm going to change the entries layout because I want to show a few things here. So this is something that is global, edit entries layout. I want the vendor to be up here in my view. So down here, I've got vendor and employee that I like to list up in my columns so I don't have to hit show details. Remember, you got to get this gray bar to show. So you kind of have to play with it a second. Let go. And what else? Maybe the cost code. That would be good. Cost type. I don't really care about item too much. Cost type's what we use. So I'm going to drag that down. Get the gray bar somewhere here. And I think we're going to leave it. I think that one needs to stay. Okay. Amount retained, you could throw up there as well, and completed this period. This might be good to have. So just remember on your screens, this is global and you can do this on a lot of screens. Okay. So we're going to do that. And there's a couple amount retained, so I'm going to bring that back down. I don't care about warehouse. So a typical view would be using something like this. Okay, you can adjust this more as you want and apply the layout here. So now I have a detailed billing screen of what I did for my actual 23,000. Now I'm going to scroll up to the top here and we're going to talk about the tabs up here again. So we've got posting details. Again, that's how that posts to the general ledger. Got my income, retainage, AR, history, when it was done, if it was emailed out yet or not, if it's been paid or not. Project contract billing details. So again, this is a summarized at the line level, the summarized amounts for completed this period, etc. Okay, you've got a summary in total up here of all of that. Here on your summary billing details, I have a layout here that shows the actual links to the source documents. Okay, so if I want to look at this specific subcontract invoice down here, I can click this link here and the subcontract invoice screen pulls up. Again, if I had an attachment, it's going to show here on the right or through the paperclip. There's these update buttons as well. Don't forget to use those when needed. Okay, so if the screen is blank, you might have to hit that billing details on the time and material one. Hit done, gets me back to my list where I was. Couple things I want to point out. Do not try to edit the invoice down here in the amounts. If something is not quite right, you have to redo the billing. You're going to want to delete it and redo the billing. These are not editable once you have generated the invoice. Okay, it looks like you can, and you might be able to, but it does not treat it properly. So you will have to fix them by deleting and redoing the time and material or prior spelling. So delete, and then you'll regenerate the screen all over again under generate invoices. Okay. I'm going to show different invoice forms that we have for time and material. So there are many different layouts you can use for time and material invoices that are not AIA. There's some quick bill ones if you just want a simple scope and you want an amount. So I'm going to show that at the end. But there are specific setups for those specific forms and how you do them in the contract screen. So I'm going to make sure that I cover as much as I can, but you are going to have specific layouts you want that are not part of any sort of time and material template that's already loaded. Okay, so that's why we have the one-on-one check-ins with you to go through some of those specific billing scenarios. Okay, so a couple more that I want to point out, a couple more items. I want to show you the generate invoice screen and a couple of common best practices on the time and material types of billings. So I'm going to pick my Stratus Corporate Center again. I'm going to pick my T&M. You can have multiple forms, okay? So you're not limited to 2. You can have multiple T&Ms, multiple quick bills, multiple lump sum. There can be however many forms you want. This is the form it's going to come out on. Okay, so we're going to preview this screen again. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to do number 3 here because we have to have something there. And a couple of things I want to point out. So down here take off all the labor and do a simple fix on the AP bill. So here on the AP bill, let's say that this bonding, I really don't want to mark it up, even though I put the rate table on it and I really want it all entries to be marked up 20%. But this specific one, I've changed my mind. I don't want to mark it up. I can fix it right here. This is one of my favorite things in the billing screen is being able to fix the price without having to go and adjust the rate table, exclude the vendor name somehow in the rate table, regenerate this, and try to get this fee to come off. I have this option right here to override it. Okay. One thing I want to point out is if you've billed this line at all, if it's checkmarked at all, do not partial bill this. It's either billed in full or it's unchecked and it comes in again the next month or the next time. So if you've checkmarked it and you put any sort of amount in here or checkmark it and put a 0, it's gone the next month. Okay, so it doesn't bring it back in if you partially bill it. So just want to watch out for that. So then I can just create the invoice, which I'm not going to do, but I can create the invoice and the $2,000 here is not marked up because I made it the same as the cost. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. And obviously don't forget to come up here, hit update totals. So the $2,000 is updated here in the total this period. It warns you if you haven't done it. It also will not let you create the invoice if you have not updated everything. So now we are going to talk about a couple more scenarios. So I'm going to go back to project contracts. And I have a scenario where I have an AIA and I want to put fee at the bottom and I want to have the AIA have the amounts filled in based on my costs in the system plus a rate table. Okay, so I have a specific way that I want the AIA to work and I want the fee at the bottom as well. So in order to do that, what we need to do is set it up like a time and material type of contract. So I'm going to use the Stratus Corporate Center one, and I'm going to show you how this works and how the setup is in the actual lines. So on my header, I'm going to start here though and recap this quick. The only thing you might change here is, and have this type, it would be AIA time and material based. You might want something like that for a type, okay? The lines, we're going to do a little differently, but they're going to be using the time and material billing type. So on this line, instead of progress bill, like an AIA was, where I typed in the percent complete or I put those amounts in, we're going to use time and material instead. And if I want my AIA to stop at the total revised price, more than likely, that's what most people want, then I'm going to use that, and it's going to key off of the 78,000 here plus change orders in the system. Okay. You can have the option to use the specified amount or the no maximum if you want to. This even works on the AIA form. So in the scenario I was talking about where you can have the AIA go over your schedule of values, you can bill over the amount, you have to use this setup right here. So I'm going to use total revised price though. Summarize to a single entry. I need that checkbox on. So it's going to summarize all of my costs that all my cost codes I'm going to link here in a minute. I'm going to link all these cost codes. They're already linked, excuse me. All these cost codes are already linked to this line. It's going to summarize them all into one line, to this pre-construction line, and it's going to apply this rate table to them. So if I have any permit, and then bonding, time, hitting any of these cost codes, it's going to look to this rate table, and it's going to use that logic to calculate the labor rate or the markup percent. Okay, it's going to plunk it all. It's going to calculate all that. Going to plunk it on this line on my AIA screen, on my generate invoice screen. Okay, so it's going to put the amount in for me. Okay, so I'm going to change this contract line to do that so that you can see that scenario. Best practice, once you have generated a billing on a contract line, a billing on a contract, do not play around with this a whole lot. You might have a scenario where you get some errors. So I'm going to show it, but best practice is to not adjust a contract if you've done a billing on it. Okay. If you have a need to do that, jump on a Q&A with us, because there are some quirks to getting through that we'll want to show you. Okay. If it's possible even to do it. So it's very important to set these up out of the gate the proper way. Okay. So we have the scenario going on. I'm going to save this. So I have now time and material summarized. Remember, I can have a view so I can see, did I put the summarized box on? So I'm going to add that as a column to see if I've put that setting on. So time and material, billing type, summarized. I've done it on that one line. Now I have a situation where I'm not going to put the fee at the bottom on this one. So in the rate table, the costs that hit those cost codes are going to be summarized to this line, and they're going to calculate the fee inside there. So this specific scenario, I am not putting the fee at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to show a separate one for that. So I'm going to summarize all of my lines here. So I'm going to edit all these, summarize all my lines, and then I'm going to have another setup for putting the fee at the bottom. Now that I've edited all those lines and put the summarize box on, I'm now ready to go to my generate invoice screen. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick project contract. Now this time I want to put it on the AIA. Okay, so I can use the same form that I was using before when it was a progress bill scenario. Put my dates in again. We were using the Stratus Corporate Center. Dates are the same. Hit preview. I'm going to pick at 3 and type that in. And now notice still progress bill was not selected. So this is progress bill area, nothing there. But look down here, it's pretty summarized still, right? It's got the same summary, but I have a total this period now that I can actually do something with. So I'm going to show you best practices and I'm going to show you what you can do. You're going to want to really listen to the best practice here because it will trip you up if you do it differently. So I'm going to hit update totals. So all of these checkmarked boxes down here below are all of the entries in the system. And it's a time and material based AIA. Okay, so all of these entries, it's selected all. Okay, so I didn't unselect any yet. All of these then just updated into complete total this period. So all the stuff below equals that. It added the fee to it. It added the rate per hour. So if I look at the total right here, 44,850, 2,400, all of the lines, these lines, right? All of the lines for 01 here are all of these entries, the price, all of those added up, for example. You can play with the retainage if you want to bring it down, for example, hold less. So anywhere there's a white box you can play with. So best practice, also you can bill retainage. Best practice is do not do this. Do not change that total without coming down below and changing the underlying amounts down here. You're going to lose sight as to what you were doing and why you billed that 30 grand, unless you're at the very end and that's the last billing. I suppose that would be an okay scenario, but you want to be careful overriding these totals. So the right scenario, best practice would be to not use those, come down here and adjust in the price what you're doing, what you're trying to bring it down by or bring it up by. Remember, anytime you check mark something and it's going to be used and it won't come in again the next month or the next billing. Okay, so do not override the totals. That's a best practice. So now this is going to create an AIA form. I'm going to unselect. I'm just going to select a few and then I'm going to select a few down here. And we're going to update totals again. And this is what it's going to generate on the AIA form with this much retainage held. Okay, and these are just summaries. You can see I can't do anything there. Can change if I want to bill retainage though, right there. So I'm going to hit create invoice. Now let's go look at number 92. I'm going to print or email it here to view it on the AIA form. Okay, now you can see my AIA. So the 10,350, it treated it just like it did when I used Progress Bill, but it filled in the amounts for me. Again, view the screen. You're going to have all those summary tabs like before. I was kind of going through. Okay, so now a scenario where I have an AIA and I have the fee at the bottom. So I'm going to go to project contracts and I am going to look at the fixed price one, the Crest Hotel we'll use. So again, depending on what you need for the view here, you could say AIA fixed price, fee at the bottom, for the contract type. If you really need that differentiation, you can do that as well, right? So kind of a best practice, what some other people are doing. The header here, it's going to be the same. Again, you might change that. Don't need description. Okay, the rest is fine. Don't forget to integrate. Okay, save. The lines are going to be progress bill, and then the fee is going to be set up at the bottom. So something you can do, you can mix up the billing type lines. So if I want to do time and material summarized, like I was just showing, or filled the AIA screen out for me, I can do that, and I can put fee at the bottom as a progress bill. So I can also do all progress bill, fee at the bottom. So I'm going to type in all amounts. I'm going to type in the fee at the bottom as well. Okay. The fee is not going to be something that calculates in this scenario. You have to calculate it, type it in yourself, no matter what. So even if you use the time and material summarized scenario I just went through. Let me see what line we're on here. So we're on line, I did a change order. So I'm going to put 35. I'm going to put the fee at the bottom. There's already a change order in the system, so ignore that one. But we're going to put 35 fee. Usually that's before the change order. So we have this all set up. And retainage probably. Progress bill. So this has to be progress bill. Because you're going to type it in. Pick our project, and pick contract item, if you remember. And let's say the estimated fee is $500,000. Okay. Hit save. Now, progress bill, if you remember, does not have any rate tables on it, so no fees in here anyway. If you don't spread the fee out on all your lines and you want the fee at the bottom, let me put it in the description as well because it's missing there. So it looks similar to these other lines, but you've got the fee here and you've got the 500,000. So let me go back to the default view because I'm using that special view. Okay, so here's the default view. This is using the line name, not the description. Okay, so I've got 35 fee. Usually that's above the change order, but that's okay. I've got it all as progress bill. So the screen is going to look like this. Remember, I'm picking that first. We want it on the AIA type form. We're using the Crest Hotel. Scroll down and put an application number in. Okay, now all of the lines, so this is the progress bill scenario. It's under project contract lines. All of them are together. So the fees at the bottom. Got my completed this period. I have to calculate what I'm going to bill for my fee. Okay, I cannot have this automated like I said. So if I'm going to bill $10,000 here, for example, maybe $5,000 up here, 50 grand. I've got a $60,000 billing I'm going to send out. So if I know that the fee on this project is 10%, I'm going to have to type in 10% here. Something you can do is type in, you can do math in the actual cell. So I can do 60,000 times 0.1, enter. Okay, so I can do some math without pulling out my calculator or pulling up Excel. I can do it right there. So that is the scenario. You put the fee at the bottom, you have to hand calculate it in, create the invoice again, and it's an AIA type form. Okay. So now let's talk about the one where we want the time and material summarized. We want the actual AIA to be filled out by the system to plunk those amounts in the generate invoice screen. And we want the fee at the bottom. So the one we were using for that scenario was the corporate center. So on the lines here, I can have time and material on all my other lines. And then I can do something like this and put the fee at the bottom. There's one caveat to this. Once I get this filled out that you're going to want to know. You're going to do progress bill because you're going to type that fee in. There's no way the system can calculate it if you want to list it at the bottom. We're going to pick these. And let's say our fee is $60,000. Let's do $100,000. Save. Okay, so now I have a scenario where I've got my time and material. And it's going to calculate those costs and it's going to do the fee at the bottom. Okay, so the caveat to this is on the rate table, you might want still the labor rates to have markup on them or have this per rate per hour situation, but you're not going to do this because you're going to put the fee, the percent fee at the bottom. Okay, so you're going to make these all blank here. So you're not going to fill in anything after timesheet rate entries if you want a per hour rate only and you want the fee at the bottom. If you don't even want the labor marked up at all either, then you don't even put a rate table on the lines. Okay, so those are the options. You can have no rate table or you can just put the labor rates in here only. We're going to pretend this only has labor rates on it, and we're putting all the percent fee at the bottom. So then in the screen, what it's going to look like is something like this. Let me get this generated. Project contract first. And I want it to come out on the AIA with the fee at the bottom, but I want the AIA to fill in all the costs for me. We're going to use the Stratus. We're going to come down here to number 4. Okay, so this is the different scenario. Since I picked progress bill for the fee line, it's going to be up here in this progress bill area. But down here is all of my other lines. Okay, so notice I stop at 28 and then my fee is up here where I'm going to type in the amount that I want to bill. So remember, I got to do the math in the cell, do the calculation. So let's say, again, I'm going to do something like this. Just pick a couple here. I'm going to pick a couple purchasing. And we're going to update totals. And my amounts are going to populate into 9,000. So I know I'm billing 9,000 and I know on this job, let's say it's a 5% fee. So I'm going to do 9,000 and completed this period times 0.05, enter. And now I've just created an AIA with my costs. In the scenario, we pretended that the labor rate was only on the rate table, per hour rates, and the fee is at the bottom, the percent fee. Calced it there, hit create invoice. Okay, so now 93. Let's go look at it. And it's going to be print your email. And now I have my amounts plus my 450 fee at the bottom for my 9,450 this period. Okay, so that's how you do that scenario, putting the fee at the bottom, having the AIA pre-fill in for you, the costs on the other lines. Okay, a couple other things I want to point out that you're going to want to know is on the generate invoice screen, when you're using the time and material summarized scenario, the AIA is going to pre-fill in for you. Get that screen back up. You cannot use stored materials in this scenario. So down here, where I was doing my AIA, it's going to fill in for me these amounts on the AIA, right? And I'm not going to override these. That was the best practice. I have no option in this grid to put stored materials into that scenario. So if you use time and material summarized and you want to spit these amounts out on the AIA automatically, you cannot use stored materials as an option. You have to do progress bill then and type the amounts in on the AIA. Okay, so I wanted to clarify and make sure that you know that's stored materials is not an option.